As partners, negotiating differences. My name is Terry Chebbett, and I'm the coordinator of the Parent Consultation Program at Jewish Family and Children's Service. I have been working with families and their small children for almost 20 years. My specialty is working with families who have multiples as a result of my first two sons being twins. Jennifer Meyerhart, my co-presenter, is here with me.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Meyerhart, and I specialize in working with families who are at risk for developing social, educational, and developmental challenges. I have been at Jewish Family and Children's Services for 13 years. I have 3 children who are 15, 13, and 11.
This webinar is co-sponsored by Parents in a Pinch and JF&CS. JF&CS has, for almost 150 years, been Greater Boston's leading provider of human services. JF&CS helps people of all ages, faiths, and religions with the challenges of life. During this presentation, I will be showing slides on your computer that summarize my talking points. The webinar can only be heard through your phone, and your own voices will be muted. Please feel free to type questions as they occur to you in the text box. Jennifer will keep track of your questions and will either answer them individually or hold them in queue for us to answer together at the end of the presentation. You can minimize or maximize the question box with the orange arrow that is on the control panel. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to be talking about parenting with your partner as if you are living in a two-parent household. Even if this isn't the case, you probably still have a partner in the parenting process, be it your nanny, a grandmother, a sister, or a friend. In that regard, the principles that I'm going to talk about still apply. Also, you may be tuning in because you're either mildly curious about this topic or experiencing specific challenges. During this presentation, we're going to provide a framework for thinking about parenting with your partner, but we encourage you to follow up individually to get specific suggestions for your unique situation. Having a baby is a really exciting time for a couple. It's an incredible opportunity to grow as an individual and to grow and strengthen your relationship. It expands your presence of your own little unit into the world in an incredible and expanding way. However, having a baby can also highlight your differences. We're going to take a minute now to ask the first poll question. You're going to see it on your screen, and I'm going to give you a moment to answer the question. Did you believe that having a baby would make you happier as a couple? Take a minute to answer this, and then Jennifer will tell us what the poll results were.
Terry, it looks like most of the results are in, and about 50% of those who are participating in our webinar believe that having a baby would make you happier as a couple.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. We're going to follow that up with our second poll question. Has having a baby made you happier as a couple? Again, take a moment to answer this, and Jennifer will share the results.
Terry, our results are in, and about 60% of our attendees have said that having a baby did not make them happy as a couple. 40% said yes, it did make them happier as a couple.
Thanks, Jennifer. You can see from your screen that in a study done by Brian Doss at Texas A&M in 2009, who followed 218 newly married couples for 8 years, that in general, in fact, 90% of the cases, most people in a couple reported decreased satisfaction in their marriage after the birth of their first child. Unfortunately, as you can see, that continued to decline until children started to become more independent and leave the house. However, I don't want you to despair. If you are tuning into this webinar, you are already curious about how to make this parenting process smoother and your marriage happier. And being curious is the first step. Basically, we each come from a background of specific beliefs and practices. The culture, the religion, the area of the country or of the world that we were raised in play a part in helping us become who we are. Our foundation, our understanding of who we are in the world is created by all of that put together. Our family, how we were raised, where we grew up. And we build our expectations for our current family on the foundation that we experienced. If we grew up in a family, let's say, where life was organized around children, we might expect to do that with our own children. If we grew up in a family where children were seen but not heard, we might expect to recreate our current family that way. Either way, what we think we want to do with our current family is directly related to the way we were raised. If we come from different environments than our partners, and we all do, then the first step of being able to talk about these differences is to be clear about what we believe and where those beliefs come from. Knowing them allows us to talk about them and discuss them as opposed to creating this dynamic of right and wrong, of thinking that there's either one way to do it and the other way is the wrong way to do it. If we can talk about where we come from and what we believe, we can begin to think about what will be best for the people in our current family and negotiate rather than fight. The question is, how do we begin to unravel what it is we believe? We can look at some of these questions as just a way to guide the conversation. What, for instance, was the priority of children in your family? How were they viewed? Did your parents have a particular set roles and responsibilities, or were they constantly shifting? Were your weekly routines the same, or did they change? How was discipline handled in your family? And what were practices around attitudes and attitudes around food, money, religion, friends? As you start to ask yourself these questions, it becomes clear that you were raised by a very specific and unique position. No one else has the same foundation, not even your partner. What do you do with all this information? You compile the picture of your family of origin and have your partner do the same. You can take these lists to a neutral setting. You can go for a walk. You can find a park, a coffee shop, go out to eat, and start to compare notes. Where did we each come from? How is it that we believe what we believe? Then I encourage you to think about your current family. Who's in your family? What are the different personalities? For instance, if you both grew up in families where dinner time was somewhat chaotic and you didn't really know what time you were going to eat, every day might be different for the next, but you happen to have a child who is his best self with a lot of structure, a lot of predictability, then that's not going to necessarily work for him. So you need to take into account all the different personalities and temperaments in your own family. And what are your family goals? What is it that you want to achieve? What kind of family is it that you want to create? Well, once you talk about where you come from and what you believe, and then think about what you want and who are the people in your family, you can start to create strategies that will work for your current family. It's also important to think that as people change, you can continue to have this conversation and to fine-tune your goals and strategies. As we have learned, each person comes from a unique and specific vantage point. The goal is not to convince your partner to do what you do or to do it the same way, but to respect what it is that you do and where you come from. In fact, T. Barry Brazelton, who's a noted pediatrician and child development expert, talks often about the importance of exposing children to various practices to help them learn that there is more than one way to do things. This includes everything from the way a baby is held or fed or put to bed. Children benefit from variety. Jennifer, do you have a story about how that's been beneficial to families you've worked with?
Yes, you know, and it's one of those issues, Terry, that seems to come up a lot in the families I work with. Generally, the primary caretaker gets frustrated when their partner does not do things exactly the way they do them. And I do try to reassure them that it's really actually a good thing for a child to learn to adapt to doing things in different ways. So one family I work with, the mother likes to have a very particular routine before her and her child go out to the playground. So she likes to do things in a particular order. The child has to first put on her shoes and then grab her coat, and when everything is all ready, they then go to the door together and go out to the playground. Her partner, on the other hand, doesn't feel that this is necessary. He just says, let's go. He grabs the daughter's coat and shoes, and they start heading down. The mom feels that that is undermining her. But really, the child is learning that meanings are different in different contexts, and she's able to respond both to her mother's set of rules and to her father's. And that child is learning that with different people, there are different rules and different expectations.
I think that's really a helpful guide to remember. It doesn't have to be the same. What parents do does not have to be the same, but it is very important to support each other's decisions in front of the children. Children tend to get frightened and really unsure and unsteady when they see their parents arguing in front of them and they experience that level of tension. If you disagree with your partner is saying or doing, I encourage you to take that out of earshot of your children. Have a conversation after tempers have cooled, and you can start to compare notes of what you believe and what you actually think would be helpful. And make, as much as you can, a unified plan. A unified plan, again, does not mean that each person is doing exactly the same thing, but that you at least have some idea of what each other is planning to do. We're going to ask our last poll question of this webinar, which is, do you have at least a monthly date night?
Okay, it's interesting to look at this. Wait, I'm going to give it one more second, Terry, because people are still voting, I see. Okay, I think that most votes are currently in. 79% of you responded that you do not have a regular monthly date night, whereas a much smaller percentage, 20%, indicates that you do have a monthly date night.
It makes so much sense because life gets so busy when you have children and you're working and you're trying to just get through life. But I encourage you, in general, to try to have fun with your partner. You take care of your primary relationship. However you do it, whatever's fun, remember to just carve out a little time. Study after study has shown that parents who make time for each other away from their children are happier with their family lives, have more energy for their children, and show more marital satisfaction. And children are also the real recipients of parents being happier and remembering to have fun together. Also, remember to allow room for differences of opinion. Again, you both come from different places, and it's important to respect and keep that in mind and allow that you're not going to agree on everything, and that's really okay. The important part is to negotiate and learn to negotiate peacefully with each other. And last, have fun as a family. create rituals and routines for your family that will ground them and make them feel some kind of family identity. That will be a really rich experience for them as well. We are now going to open the webinar up to questions. And Jennifer, I think, has the first question that came in during the text.
We got a really great question, which I saved to answer out loud. One of our viewers asked, isn't it helpful for kids to learn how to negotiate differences by watching their parents? And I imagine that question came as a result of Terry speaking about taking your disagreements outside of earshot. So it's a really great question, because yes, it's okay for kids to learn. The parents don't always agree on everything. But it's very scary for kids to watch parents argue, be irrational with each other, raise their voices. So it's really important, if you're going to come to agree to disagree in front of your children, that it be done in a very calm, civil way, and that the kids also understand, well, that sometimes mom and dad, or mom and mom, or mom and grandma don't agree on all their parenting decisions, that they do support the others, that we understand there's different ways to do things, and mommy does it this way and grandma does it this way, and that's okay. And this is actually going to be a helpful mantra as your kids go out into the world, because your kids will experience families doing things in different ways, and sometimes it'll be, and they'll say, well, why can't we do it this way? And it'll be helpful to say to them, just as you would say between two partners, well, that's the way that family does it, but this is the way we do it in our family. So that's a great question.
We've also had a request to show the list of topics in your family again, so we're going to go back to that slide if you want a minute to write that down. When you're thinking about your family of origin, it's helpful to think about what the beliefs and practices were regarding the priority of children in your family, parental roles, schedules, expected behavior by children, food, religion, friends, communication, money, playtime. You can expand this list ad infinitum, because really what you're trying to do is get a snapshot of what was the belief that you were raised with, and because that's where we all start from. That was a great question. Okay.
We got another question in. What do you do if one parent is stronger on discipline than another? And this is an excellent question. It actually is the kind of question that might work really well in a parent consultation, because there's so much more I want to ask about that question. I'm not quite sure what our viewer means by stronger on discipline, but I'll try to answer it very generally. Like everything else, two partners have different backgrounds, as we've talked about the way they were disciplined, what discipline meant in their family of origin, and what they themselves believe about discipline. So two parents are not going to discipline exactly the same. Again, kids will learn that certain things make one partner more upset than another, and maybe they have to adhere to certain rules. It's really important in the area of discipline, though, to sort of set up family goals and to try to think through what are you trying to achieve as a family, and find some kind of middle ground on what you believe about discipline, because that is just one of the really important things you do as a family. But you're not going to do it exactly like you and your partner. So trying to at least be pointed towards a similar goal in what you're disciplining could be very helpful.
We had another question about what are some family goals, and I think that is a really wonderful question to try to wrestle with your partner about, because every family defines themselves differently. Some families, it's important for them to be kind and respectful of each other. Manners are important. That can be a family goal. Participating in community activities can be a family goal. Being neat and tidy can be a family goal. It really can be anything that feels important to you and your partner, from the very smallest to the very biggest of topics. But it's really something for the two of you to think, how do we want our family to look? For instance, in different societies, some children are raised sleeping in the parents' rooms, in their beds, and in some they're raised sleeping in their own rooms, and it leads to a different kind of a family down the road. So thinking about how it is that you want your family to look can guide your thinking about what kinds of strategies to do. There's another question coming in. What do you do if there's a stepchild in your home that you do not want interacting with your younger children due to their out-of-control behaviors and bullying? That is a very big and hard question that I encourage you to seek help either from a parent consultant or in your community, because it sounds like there's really two issues there. One is that child being out of control and bullying, and that's a very complicated issue to try to get underhand. And the other is how to blend a family, which is a lovely and wonderful goal. And so I encourage you to seek further help with that question, because it's not an easy fix and it's not an easy answer.
We have another question coming in. When my husband comes home, he roughhouses with my son. It's incredibly frustrating to me because I have just settled my son down and he's ready to bed, and it gets him all roused up. This is a great question because I see it so often in the families I work in, where the parents have different styles. Oftentimes, one partner comes home right at bedtime and hasn't seen the child all day and is so excited to play with the child that all they can do is pick them up and play with them, and it totally undermines what the other partner has done to calm them down. So I think first, this is the kind of issue you really talk with your partner about and try to make sure they really understand why throwing the child around at the time they do, or roughhousing with them, might be really difficult. I don't know if that conversation's been had, but it's so important that you not just say, you can't throw the child around when you get home, you're riling them up, that you really explain what's going on and find ways for the partner when he or she comes home to have really fun time with their child who they probably haven't seen all day, but in a way that stays in the ready-to-bed mode.
Another issue that comes up quite commonly are issues of safety. If you have two people in a family, you're going to have two very different ideas of how to keep children safe and what constitutes safety. For some parents, for some moms, jumping from the second step for their 2-year-old is going to be a fine choice, and for some dads, jumping from the 10th step is a fine choice. And you're really going to have to learn to talk about where your comfort level is around safety and consequences. Even when you are as attentive to your child as you can be, things will happen, they might get hurt. And so maybe the goal is really coming to some kind of middle place. There's going to be some issues that are absolutely non-negotiable for you, but the ones that you can imagine coming to some middle ground on are going to be helpful to talk about. Again, knowing that there are going to be differences in your comfort level around things such as safety, because as soon as you introduce two people, you're going to introduce two different standards of what constitutes safety. Discipline is another, I think, topic that we're getting a lot of questions about. That's a very hard one to come up with a standard answer. That one is a right way to do it and one is a wrong way to do it. Really, what you and your partner, just how you decide to discipline your children, and what will be infractions that cause a timeout, and what might be, as your children get older, will warrant a grounding or a removal of a privilege, are important to talk about in advance as you can. It's harder to react on the spot and come to consensus as opposed to anticipating what how your children might change and what they might and what might be some of your reactions and choices for disciplining them? Jennifer, I think we have about time for one more question. Has one come in?
Yeah, one question just came in, which I'm sure applies to more than just the writer. How do you handle when a step-parent is involved and has a totally different parenting style than you and your partner? This particular person would like to incorporate the step-partner in decision-making as she has now joined the family. First, I'd like to commend the writer on really being aware of the role of step-parents and trying to incorporate them into the family and have a united as possible front. Again, the same things we talk about would apply. Think about maybe with her or him, I don't know if the step-parent's a he or she, their own beliefs, their own family of origins, have maybe a sit-down with the three parents involved and try to come to a mutual understanding of what your goals are for the child, what each of your beliefs are based on your own families, and try to figure out a way to best at least be on a united front in that you at times agree to disagree, but that you support each other. Well, thank you to everybody who attended. I want to thank Parents in a Pinch for co-sponsoring this webinar. Our next webinar will be November 9th, 2011 at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we will discuss food fights, encouraging healthy eating habits so everybody wins. We hope that you will consider parent consultations at Jewish Family and Children's Service if you have further questions or concerns. A parent consultant will get to know you and the people in your family and create strategies to address your own situation. We can meet once or over a series of weeks, either on the phone or if you're in the Boston area, in our office at your home. To find out more about our parent consultations, please contact Terry Chevitt at 781-693-5669 or tchevitt@jfcsboston.org. You can also learn more about our parenting consultation program at jfcsboston.org. Thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again for next month's webinar.